I mean, granted, the bar is really, really low, but I'm pretty sure we just saw the best second period of the entire Kraken season. What's cracking, everybody, and welcome back to Kraken R&R, where the Seattle Kraken do win 6-2 over the Chicago Blackhawks, their third and final meeting of the season against one of the two worst teams in the NHL. And on that note, just for anybody that's feeling down or annoyed about the Kraken inability to successfully tank at this point in the season, at least for this game, it's the Blackhawks, and yeah, the Kraken did already lose to them once this year, but especially the way that that team played the last 40 minutes of this game, there isn't a team in the NHL, maybe aside from the Sharks, that could possibly lose to the Blackhawks playing the way that they did, and then look themselves in the face the next day. It was just really, really ugly hockey from the Blackhawks from pretty much the first intermission on. Though with that said, I do understand that with this win, the Kraken did jump the Flyers in the standings, or drop below them in the draft order. They're now 6th in the draft lottery order, rather than where they had been 5th for a while. Still in a very tight group with them, the Sabres, the Panthers, and the two teams from Pennsylvania, and the Penguins and Flyers, so there's still plenty of season left for the Kraken to work their way back up that order, or down the standings, depending on how you look at it, and especially with a pretty tough schedule the rest of the way. I think there's a decent chance that even with the Kraken playing some of their most consistently good hockey here at this point, they're still going to end up losing quite a few games down the stretch, and could at least get back into the top 4 or 5 in that draft lottery order. Again, though, as far as this game is concerned for the Kraken, it was pretty much a scheduled win for them from the beginning. This is easily one of the two worst teams in the NHL. It's them and the Sharks that have just completely run away with those top 2 spots in the draft lottery order. Which one will be which? Who knows at the end of the season, but those are going to be 1 and 2 in the lottery order. And for the Kraken, yeah, they did already lose to them once this season, so it's possible that they find a way to screw things up, or depending on your point of view, find a way to do the right thing and lose this game. But the Blackhawks really were in control of that. They are the much better tank between the two teams, and that was on full display. I mean, again, this is a team that, especially after the deadline and trading away Seth Jones, I don't think it's a stretch to say that Ryan Donato is the second best player on that team. And even with how much we like Ryan Donato, well, when he's the second best player on your team, you know you have some problems. Now, with that being said, as we get into the game, with the same lineup for the Kraken as the previous one, including Decord in net, well, actually, right off the bat, we have a fight as puck drops, which I don't really understand why that happened. Maybe it was something, I think I heard somewhere that John Hayden owed Maroon a fight or something like that. Either way, Hayden's out there for the opening faceoff and drops gloves with Maroon right away. They punch it out. Maroon probably wins that, and it definitely gets Chicago going a bit. That's a team that, even in spite of the fact that they are actively trying to lose games, I mean, not the players, but the organization is actively trying to lose games. The players are still playing for their own pride and, their own stats and future careers and all of that. But yeah, I mean, you look at the roster and yeah, it is what it is. Still, it's been a rough go for that team lately, and they needed something to get some vibes going in the right direction. And that fight seemed to certainly energize their bench as things go south for the Kraken pretty quickly. They send the Blackhawks to an early power play, and not long into it, Bedard scores to make it 1-0. Of course, it doesn't necessarily happen in the way that you might expect a Bedard power play goal to score, just a beautiful shot or a fancy play where he dekes someone out and then just beats Decord on some incredible move or something like that. No, it's a shot where he's really just trying to do a cross-seam pass to the other side, and it happens to go off of the inside of Larsson's leg right in front of him and bounce perfectly into the top corner over the shoulder of Decord. It's a very unfortunate bounce for the Kraken, or, again, fortunate if you're hoping that they lose games. They are down 1-0 either way. But even outside of that, even with that being a bad bounce that does get the Blackhawks the lead, they still certainly controlled the first half of the first period. They had the majority of the shots on goal, and definitely the majority of the good scoring chances through even the 13-14 minute mark of this first period. A Kraken team that had been getting off to some good starts certainly did not in this game against a team that they really should have come out looking a lot better against. And even though the Kraken do survive all of that to eventually get things turned around late in the first and start moving momentum in their direction, it's still the Blackhawks who, kind of at that point against the flow of play, do end up scoring the next goal to make it 2-0. Once again, it's a deflected shot that ends up in past Decord, giving him really no chance, though this time it is off the stick of a Blackhawk player, an intentionally tipped puck. A shot on net is tipped by Pertuzzi in front. Decord goes to catch the puck, but it never makes it to his glove. It goes over his other shoulder and into the net behind him to give the Blackhawks that 2-0 lead. But even with just under 3 minutes left in the first period when the Blackhawks do take that multi-goal lead, the Kraken are still able to cut that lead in half before we get to the intermission, and it really doesn't take them long at all. In fact, it's just 31 seconds after the Blackhawks make it 2-0, the Kraken get their first of the game, the first line out on the ice, into the offensive end, and eventually it's Matty Beniers getting a pass down below the goal line from, I want to say, Jamie Alexiak way up at the top. Either that or Vince Dunn. I can't remember which one of them gets it down to Beniers, but either way, it doesn't take long for Beniers to find, of all people, Adam Larsson in the middle of the slot, low to high pass, and the one-time shot buried into the back of the net. Not a ton of chance for Knight. He just has to hope the puck hits him. It doesn't, and the Kraken get on the board, quickly responding to the second goal. And then soon following number 6's sixth of the season, the Kraken get their first power play of the game to end out the first period, and also will bleed a little bit into the second if they aren't able to score, which they aren't. It's a terrible power play from the Kraken. They do pretty much everything short of getting the Blackhawks a good scoring opportunity shorthanded. They do actually give the Blackhawks a chance to get into the offensive end with the puck, or at least one guy anyway. They defend that well, but then ice the puck down the other way and just don't generate any kind of offense of their own into the first intermission, and then through the remaining seconds of that power play to start out the second period. And with what would turn out to be the only power play of the game for the Kraken, each team only getting one chance on the power play, with both of those coming at least majority in the first period anyway, with that power play going absolutely nowhere for the Kraken, if anything going backwards, and then heading into the second period, well, the Blackhawks retake momentum coming out of that failed power play for the Kraken, and they maintain it for the first few minutes of the second period, right up until, against the flow of play, the Kraken back the other way, tie the game. And it comes off a near identical play to the one that got them on the board in the first period, just mirrored on the other side of the ice with the flip during the intermission. And this time I went back and double checked. It is Alexiak with the secondary assist. The Larsson goal in the first secondary assist there was Jaden Schwartz, but it's Alexiak who, from up by the blue line, gets it down to Chandler Stevenson below the goal line. And Stevenson with this saucy pass, lifting it in the air just enough to get it over a defensive stick and into the slot for Jordan Eberle, who bangs in the one-time shot to tie the game for the Kraken. And from there, the Kraken do take over. Yes, even in the second period, this is the point where the game really turns around and the Blackhawks just completely fall apart. And certainly, skating-wise, forget how to play hockey in front of their goaltender Spencer Knight, who was under a complete barrage of Kraken attacks pretty much the rest of the game, but certainly the rest of this middle frame. And even more unfortunately for Knight, the next one would come just 32 seconds later, as the Kraken regain possession quickly of the puck off the ensuing faceoff and get it down the ice. A nice outlet pass from Andrei Burakovsky. Again, an aerial pass from just inside the Kraken blue line out to center ice on the other side along the boards. Jared McCann, nice hand-eye coordination play to whack it out of midair while in stride, skates it in, and buries the shot over the far shoulder to give the Kraken the 3-2 lead. In just over 30 seconds, they went from down 1 to up 1. Sorry, quick correction, it's actually 36 seconds between the two Kraken goals, not 32, so they're slacking a little bit here, but again, it's two quick goals in the game, and this time they're both for the Kraken, as they do go from behind to in the lead in a very short window of time. Now it does take the Kraken a while to extend that lead and get the fourth goal on the board, pretty much entirely thanks to Spencer Knight, who was continuously under fire, as I said, the rest of this frame, and had to make some pretty good saves to keep the Kraken off the board for that much longer. But eventually, after McCann got his 17th of the season, lifting him into second place in goal scoring on the team, everyone right now looking up at the 21 goals of Eeli Tolvanen, well, it's Matty Beniers who decides he wants a piece of that second place and the chase at Tolvanen for the team lead. As the Kraken, a nice passing play down the ice, that first line making it happen again. A good entry from Capo Caco. Gets in, gets it up to Schwartz, who allows the rest of the team to get into the offensive end, get set up a little bit before eventually handing it over to Vince Dunn, quickly across to Adam Larsson as he gets down into the faceoff circle, and then quick thinking and not quite a one-touch pass, but a pretty quick pass across the seam to the far side to Matty Beniers, who has just gotten himself lost in empty space. Actually did a pretty good job of doing that too. It's not like he was just standing there and they forgot about him. He actually works from one side of the net out to the other and finds that empty space. And that's where Larson finds him for the one-time shot that gives Knight absolutely no chance. Beniers picks up his 17th of the season and makes it 4-2 Kraken. Then a couple minutes later, it's the fourth line's turn to get involved in the fun, or at least the scoring fun. Anyway, Hayden already had his fun with that fight at the start of the game, but this time it's Mikey Azimont right down the slot. He gets a pass, a good shot on net. Knight with an equally good save, but the rebound right back out to Azimont, who gets a second shot off. Again, Knight with the save, but again, a rebound, this time out to the side. And in the chaos, the hacking and whacking, the Blackhawks are unable to find the puck, but Shane Wright is able to find it, and he taps it into the net past Knight. Again, really no chance for him after already making 2 grade A saves. Wright picks up the goal, and the Kraken, their 5th unanswered. And then from there, throughout the rest of the second period, which is just a few more minutes at this point, the Blackhawks really do try to get the Kraken another goal, but Spencer Knight is having none of it. He, at least, is the one Blackhawk, it seems, that's trying at all to play any kind of defense at this point in the game. We do get to the intermission with the Blackhawks just down 5-2, but again, unfortunately for Knight, that's just 2 periods down. There's still 20 more minutes left to go, and in the third, not much changes for the Blackhawks, and for the Kraken, that means a few minutes in, they do score again, and this one looks a lot like that passing play that got Beniers set up for his goal to make it 4-2. It's another good passing play, tic-tac-toe from the Kraken, down the ice through the neutral zone into the offensive end, and once there, Andrei Burakovsky gets a pass to Wright that is a little bit behind him on the rush, but he's able to reach back, get to it, and then make a nice pass kind of around a couple of Blackhawks coming in on the back check to Adam Larson on the far side. Larson looks off the shot, instead passing it to the other side where Wright has been completely forgotten about since just having the puck, less than a second ago. And with that pass getting through from Larson, Wright makes no mistake, buries it past Knight, who has, again, no chance. For Wright, it's also his 17th of the season, 2nd of the game, and it's 6 unanswered for the Kraken. And I suppose it's also worth mentioning that with the assists on this one going to Larson and Burakovsky, both of them pick up their 2nd assists of the night. For Larson, his 16th of the season, Burakovsky gets his 20th. For Larson, his 3rd point of the game, having that goal that started all of this for the Kraken. Another multi-goal comeback win for them, by the way, as they continue to extend their lead on the NHL as far as multi-goal comeback wins on the season is concerned. And also for Larson, a good way to come back from that unfortunate bounce off of his leg that scored the first goal of the game for the Blackhawks. And then from there, as you probably have already figured out since you saw the final score at the beginning of the video, and now we have reached the point of that final score, the Kraken are not able to score again to extend the lead even further, get a 7th unanswered goal, which would be a season high, or get Shane Wright a chance at that hat trick. They do get him a chance at the hat trick. They do not relent offensively. From Spencer Knight's point of view, maybe his defense does not relent on forcing him to make some more pretty good saves as the rest of this third period goes along. Wright does get a few more pretty good chances. The Kraken kept putting him out on the ice. It seemed like the coaching staff really did want to give him every opportunity possible to get that hat trick, and since the game was already far enough gone, there was no chance of Chicago pulling the goaltender for the empty net. That was going to have to happen at 5-on-5. In spite of the opportunities that he does get, it doesn't happen at 5-on-5, and there was also probably some amount of just playing a lot of the fourth line in a blowout game in the third period with the second half of a back-to-back coming up the next day. Either way, all of it ends in that 6-2 win for the Kraken, taking advantage of a team that really seemed like they were trying to lose. They at least were as discombobulated as you'll ever see an NHL team, and the Kraken really had no trouble taking advantage of it. They played pretty well. A few of those plays were pretty nice through the neutral zone and entry into the offensive end. They had some sloppy moments as well here and there, at least in transition and passing in the offensive end, but the Blackhawks just not good enough to take advantage of them. But either way, the Kraken again just not really challenged through certainly the last 35 minutes of the game. After the good start for the Blackhawks, the Kraken looked like they were going to make a challenge out of this game, and then Chicago just completely imploded and fell apart, and the Kraken were able to play some pretty good hockey around that and take advantage of it. Oh, and also with all of the time that he got, especially in the fourth period after getting the second goal, whether it was the Kraken trying to give him opportunities to get that hat trick, or it was just trying to save legs for the second half of a back-to-back and giving the fourth line a little more time on the ice to end out the game. Either way, Shane Wright ends it with the most, by 2 seconds, but still the most ice time he has had in an NHL game, with 17 minutes and 42 seconds. He had one game, again, earlier in January, against the Capitals at home where he had 17:40, but beside that, he hasn't even come close to that, so yeah, pretty good amount of ice time for Wright. We'll see how that translates into the next game, but he definitely took advantage of it with those 2 goals. Beyond that, I don't really know what more there is to take away from this game. The Blackhawks didn't really leave all that much to take away from a Kraken perspective, other than that they didn't play down to their opponent in this one, which, considering how some games went this season, is, I suppose, something, especially in the second period. Again, easily the best second period for the Kraken. 4-0 in that second frame alone. In total, the 6 unanswered goals, tying a season high. I don't think it's a franchise high, but either way, another multi-goal comeback win for the Kraken, as I've already mentioned as well. And yeah, it's not great for the tank, but this is one of the few games on the remaining schedule that I think you kind of went in expecting that the Kraken had at least a good chance to win, if not all but guaranteed. And the way the Blackhawks played in this game, it, I think, pretty much was guaranteed if you'd known that going in. That, and since it is the first half of a back-to-back, so we'll have another video again tomorrow, let's just close this one out with the Kraken 3 stars. As always, brought to you by the patrons over on Patreon. If you do want to help decide 3 stars after Kraken games like this one, where there are plenty of guys to choose from, even if the ones that I think we'll end up going with don't seem all that original based on the official stars. But if you want to help decide them, or the Kraken Awards for the channel at the end of the season, you can help support a little bit more than you already are by watching to this point, which is much appreciated, by also going to the link down below and supporting on Patreon as well. Like I said, the 3 stars in this one, which Patreon agreed on as well, are pretty much the official stars. I'm not going to argue with them too much. I do think I'm going to switch the first and second star, though. Officially, Larson was the first star, Wright the second one, but I'm going to go Wright as the first star. 2 goals in the game, but especially just because he got to play the most ice time he has in an NHL game and looked pretty good, even with all of that, or a good chunk of that, coming on the 4th line. He continues to drive offense for the Kraken regardless of where they seem to put him in the lineup. And just for those of you that are really hoping the Kraken go all in on tanking, I mean, I don't know what more you're supposed to do from a lineup position than take the guy that's a point per game over the course of a month and shove him onto the 4th line, where you take minutes away from him for a couple games. But they tried that, and it didn't seem to slow things down too much for the team. And now that he's back to 17, almost 18 minutes in this game, he scores 2 more times. And yeah, not against a great opponent, but still a very good game for Wright. Adam Larson, also a fantastic game. One of his best offensive performances in a Kraken jersey. He has a couple or 3 games like this a season, and this was certainly one where he was dynamic offensively, jumping down into plays. That's how he gets the goal from the slot, as well as both of the plays where he dives down into the offensive end on a tic-tac-toe passing play on the rush. First with Wright, and then gets the one to Beniers, or actually first with Beniers, and then gets the one to Wright. 2 great primary assists there on cross-seam passes that he gets through traffic in both occasions. And then the 3rd star, and also Larson's partner in crime in 2 of those scoring plays, it's got to be Matty Beniers. That first line back to really looking like the first line that we saw for about a month after Capo came to Seattle, or at least certainly after the first few games of him getting his legs under him with the new team. But they were really driving play. Anytime they were out on the ice, they were making something happen, the way that we saw them do throughout the majority of January and certainly the first half of February. And yeah, granted, again, it wasn't against the toughest of competition, but still something that can help bolster their confidence that is still there, that the results can still come, even though they weren't necessarily getting the results from some of that similar play in recent games. Now that they continue to play that way, stick with it, and start to get a little bit more results, who knows, maybe that'll open the floodgates a little bit, and we'll see some more of that down this stretch. Of course, for people hoping that the Kraken don't get too far up in the standings or too low in the draft order, maybe they don't get too carried away with lots of scoring and getting the Kraken points in the standings, but it would still be kind of nice to see, especially that line succeed as we get through these last 13 games. But as always, I'd love to know your thoughts down in the comment section below, who your 3 stars of the game would be. Andrei Burakovsky, also again 2 assists in this game, and some other good performances. Jaden Schwartz, another very good game for him, a part of that line. Capo Kakko played well, in spite of not, I don't think, getting on the score sheet at all. I mean, in that way, it was kind of across the board good performances from Kraken players. I don't think there's a single player that had a notably bad game. Even Riker Evans had a pretty decent game after a couple pretty tough performances. It's been a cold patch for him, certainly, but yeah, he was fine in this one. I mean, really, the closest thing that I can think of to a bad performance in this game might be Newman, but I don't even think that he had really what you could call a bad performance. If anything, it was just kind of not noticeable for the vast majority of the game. He does get 14 minutes of ice time, and he had a couple pretty good moments in there, a couple decent shots. I don't know if he got one on net. He might have gotten one on net, but it's generally not a super noticeable game from him, and not in a bad way either. So the couple of times that I did notice him were positive, so lean slightly towards the good end of things, and yeah, just not a game that he broke out, and there was plenty of other Kraken players that picked up that slack, I suppose, though, again, from a guy in his fourth NHL game, it's not like it's really someone that you're expecting to be driving stuff. But anyway, let's close things out on this one. Again, we'll see you tomorrow for the other half of the back-to-back, or as far as the game is concerned, later today as of when you're watching this. Until then, stay safe out there, be good to each other, God bless, and go Kraken!